From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Srini Gray. We start in Ecuador, where the government has revealed the identities of the two people kidnapped by the armed group Olivier Sinistera near the border with Colombia. During a press conference, the Interior Minister Cesar Navas showed a video of the abducted couple and explained this is the first time the front's leader, Waucho, has contacted the authorities directly with proof of life. President Lenin Moreno called a National Security Council meeting to discuss the matter. A communique from the Ecuadorian government says the two are Oscar Efrain Velasquez Gomez and Katy Vanessa Velasco Penagote. It goes on to say that the families of the couple are under police protection in Santo Domingo. On Monday, President Moreno gave a 10-day ultimatum to the armed group Olivier Sinistera to turn in their leader known as Waucho. He is also wanted for the kidnapping and killing of two journalists and their driver near the border with Colombia. Moreno said the front's leader will face death if the ultimatum isn't respected. He added that his government will not stop until justice is achieved. Ecuador has resumed military operations along the Colombian border in an attempt to find Waucho and to improve security in the area.
We are giving them 10 days. 10 days for them to hand over El Guacho to us. He has chosen the wrong path and the wrong enemy, so we are going to bring him to justice.
Foreign Minister Maria Fernanda Espinosa and the Minister of Defense, Patricio Zambrano, met their Colombian counterparts to discuss plans to improve security at the border. After the meeting, Espinosa said both countries are coordinating operations with their defense teams. For his part, Zambrano said the Ecuadorian government continues working with the Red Cross to recover the bodies of the three men killed last week.
The government of Ecuador wants to reassure people that we are backing every action from International Red Cross to recover the bodies of the three victims. We support every action and any request that the Committee of the International Red Cross makes to the national government to bring the bodies of our citizens back.
In Colombia, residents of the border region of Tumaco have warned of the risk that they may face if the governments of Ecuador and Colombia begin military action in the area. Residents of Altamira and Frontera and the human rights organization say civilians living in the area will be at high risk. The Ecuadorian authorities say that the military is needed to capture the leader of Olivier Sinistera, who is Waucho, after his group kidnapped and killed 3 workers from the El Comercio newspaper last week. Colombia's Attorney General has given the U.S. authorities 60 days to present an extradition request against the FARC party leader, Jesus Santrich. Santrich's case will then be filed with the Special Jurisdiction for Peace to discuss. The U.S. seeks Santrich and 10 others under accusations of drug trafficking committed after the signing of the peace process, which was signed in 2016. His lawyer, since Santrich has never been a drug dealer, the DEA says Santrich led an operation that sent tens of thousands of kilos of cocaine to the United States. And still in Colombia, the former presidential candidate, Piedad Cordoba, has spoken out against political discrimination against women. Speaking at the Freer Lives Without Fear event, Cordoba called on the international community to take a stand against discrimination and asked Colombian women to reflect on the obstacles they continue to face. On Monday, Cordoba made an official complaint to the prosecutor's office following her withdrawal from the presidential race. She said she faced discrimination, including not being invited to presidential debates.
I will make sure this complaint reaches the organizations of American states and the UN, so they release a statement about my absence from those debates. I'm doing this so that women in this country wake up and reflect, because many of us talk about sisterhood, but talking about it and acting on it are two different things, and many women only do the former.
In El Salvador, families and friends said their final goodbyes to the journalist who was murdered last Sunday, April 15th. The 33-year-old journalist Karla Turcios, who was reported missing last Sunday, was later found dead on the side of a highway, according to the local media. Authorities are investigating the case, and they already have various theories about the circumstances surrounding Karla's death. In the Brazilian city of Curitiba, the Lula Libre camp has agreed to move the camp to another space near the police headquarters, where Lula is being held. The organizers of the pro-Lula vigil will be fined $150,000 if the agreement to move is not respected. Telesur interviewed the Workers' Party president, Dr. Rosina, on the issue.
On top of being threatened with a fine of about $150,000, we are also being accused of criminal actions. We want an agreement with the authorities, but we are still going to continue with our vigil every day. The campsite will be dismantled, but we are not going away. The people will remain, and we will continue with the vigil.
We're going to take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
London, this lovely city. You can go to France or America.
Welcome back. Cuba's new National Assembly of Popular Power will meet for the first time this Wednesday, a day earlier than planned. The meeting will elect a new leadership for the Parliament and the Council of State. This will in turn choose a new president, as Raul Castro is stepping down. And our Laura Prada reports from Havana.
Hello, yes, nice to greet you. Indeed, since the month of June 2017 was announced the beginning of the general election process here in Cuba. Since the month of November, when Cubans nominated their representative for municipal assemblies, Cuba have been preparing, and the candidature commission have been taking all this into account to prepare this general process. First, in November, as I was saying, were elected the representative for municipal assemblies, and then more recently in the month of March were elected the representative for provincial assemblies and for the National Assembly, the Parliament of the island. Now, after both assemblies, then municipal and provincial assemblies delegates took their charge, the Candidature Commission have been meeting with the elected deputies for the National Assembly and presented to them the candidatures for the main figures of the National Assembly and for the State Council. What is going to be taking place on the 18th and the 19th of April here in Cuba? Well, this is the final step in the general election process here in Cuba. On these 2 days will be taking place the settle of the National Assembly, when the 605 deputies elected in March will be taking their charges, and after that they will elect the main figures of the National Assembly: the President, the Vice President, and the Secretary of the National Assembly. After this happens, the Candidature Commission will present the 31 proposals to integrate the State Council, and then, of course, will be elected the new president, the first vice president, and the rest vice presidents of Cuba. These will be the people who will represent Cuba and the Cuban people in all stages and all arenas. So, and we will be telling you more on what goes on with this here.
Thank you for that update, Laura Prado. Now, despite official political campaigning for Venezuela's presidential election not beginning until Friday, the pre-election buzz is beginning to take shape across the country. Freddie Gillingham has more.
Members of the Somos Venezuela movement, which is fielding President Nicolas Maduro as its candidate, brightened up the streets around Caracas's Plaza O'Leary. The campaign road ahead is just around the corner. 3 buses belonging to the movement are set and ready to begin a tour of the country. Among the supporters was the movement's General Secretary, Delcy Rodriguez, who joined the group as they prepare for what will be a 15-day journey around 200 towns.
I'm the daughter of Italian migrants who escaped World War II. My dad was in a concentration camp for 8 years. They experienced the real war with bombings, hunger, and lack of medicine, and they survived, and Venezuela welcomed us.
Over in Vargas State, opposition candidate Henry Falcon was drumming up his support. With other parties of the right calling for a boycott, many opposition supporters are placing all their hopes on the former mayor of Laura State.
Chavistas are Venezuelans just like us. What are we gonna do? Reconcile like Venezuelan brothers and respect each other regardless if they think differently than us?
Political campaigning is set to begin on Friday and will run until May 4th. Freddie Gillingham, Telesur, Caracas.
In Paraguay, the 2 leading candidates in the presidential election say they will reform the country's legal system if elected. The candidate for the ruling Colorado Party, Mario Abdo Benitez, and the opposition candidate, Efrain Alegre, announced their proposals during a TV debate on Sunday. They say they hope the reforms will tackle corruption and give confidence to foreign investors.
Karina and Carlos are members of the Secondary School Students' Union. They'll be voting for the first time on April the 22nd. They're taking advantage of the election to campaign for better education, and they listened carefully to the debate between the presidential candidates.
It had a big impact among young people, on social media and so forth. You could see the difference between the candidates. One who could barely string his sentences together, whose ideas were feeble, and another who seemed rather more confident within the limits of the current political situation we face.
For these young student leaders, the difference between the candidates was not just what they had to say, but how they said it. They were critical of the conservative candidate from the Colorado Party.
A candidate who had no concrete ideas and looked like he was reading or presenting a 6th grade assignment. That was the candidate Marito. While Efrain, I think, didn't have enough time to really speak and develop his ideas more clearly.
The government candidate, Mario Abdo Benitez, is the son of the right-hand man to the dictator Alfredo Stroessner, widely accused of torture, murder and disappearances.
In fact, human rights have figured very little in the whole campaign. I was struck by the fact that both candidates seemed frightened of touching a number of other issues that it would have been interesting to develop, like abortion or sex education in schools.
The media had already made clear that the format of the debate would not permit a direct confrontation between the candidates.
Two very conservative perspectives, formally democratic, but in many ways very similar, in a style of debate which precluded any big surprises.
With just a few days to go, most people's expectations are muted for these elections, which will decide not only the presidency of Paraguay, but the makeup of Congress and regional governments as well.
And in Panama, members of the Construction Workers Union are taking to the streets to demand a wage increase from the Panamanian Chamber of Construction. Our correspondent Hugo Vera has all the details.
Members of the Construction Workers Union took to the streets of various cities around the country. This before a strike which is planned for tomorrow between the union and the Panamanian Chamber of Construction. Workers are demanding a 15% salary increase for the next 4 years. Meanwhile, their bosses are proposing an increase of an additional 2 cents per hour each year. Workers find this unacceptable and continue to negotiate with representatives of the Panamanian Chamber of Construction. If they don't reach an agreement by today, then tomorrow at 7 a.m. they will go on strike. Thereby meaning all construction in the country where members of the union work will be stopped.
Bolivian President Evo Morales has decried the threats posed by capitalism to indigenous communities and the environment during the United Nations Forum on Indigenous Issues in New York. Morales said indigenous communities are in danger as resources are controlled by a few corporations, since capitalism doesn't recognize the rights of nature. He said the earth must not be used as a commodity. He also reminded the forum that it was Bolivia and Latin America that defended their natural resources and gave them back to their people. Morales asked the UN to guarantee the rights of Mother Earth in order to guarantee the life of future generations and to respect the experience of their ancestors. In Chile, the 2018 National Award for Medicine has been awarded to a doctor with links to the infamous Colonia Dignidad community, a sect blamed for numerous abuses during the Pinochet dictatorship and afterwards.
The winner of the National Award for Medicine is the controversial psychiatrist Otto Dor, linked to the German enclave in the south of the country, where torture, child sexual abuse, and disappearances occurred during the Pinochet dictatorship.
It's very offensive to the victims of Colonia Dignidad and to the Chilean society to award someone who used medicine as an instrument of repression and human rights violations in Colonia Dignidad.
Dr. Dor publicly defended the secretive German sect, where abuses took place. He is also accused of medicating members of the community who tried to escape. The community was controlled by former Nazi doctor and convicted pedophile Paul Schaefer, who held its members in virtual slavery. Schaefer was jailed in 2006.
Schaefer worked this way. If someone tried to escape, then magically there were medical certificates that declared them crazy when they were perfectly sane. That is how the Schaefer machinery worked. Dr. Durr was directly involved in the case of Mr. Stricker, a Colonia Dignidad member who died under his care.
Chile's National Award for Medicine has been annually since 2001. The judges include private institutions like the Medical Academy of Chile. Dr. Otto Dor is recognized for describing bulimia nervosa as a disease for the first time, although there aren't any official statements yet. Dor has said himself that his links to Colonia Dignidad are merely anecdotal.
And sadly, this person who is receiving the National Award for Medicine has lied because he told me personally on a TV show that he used to vacation in Colonia Dignidad and that everything that was happening at the time against Paul Schaefer and his organization had to do with the envy that Chileans feel towards foreigners.
In the 1990s, Colonia Dignidad was raided and investigated. The dramatic testimonies of the survivors left no doubt that the accusations of pedophilia and torture against the sect were true. That was when Karl Stricker died after being treated by Dr. Otto Dor.
I would hope that somehow Dr. Dor himself would have the courage and decency to reject the award, because that would show that he's really sorry about being an accomplice of all this.
For now, the controversy continues and the Medicine Academy remains silent.
Time now for us to take another short break, but join us again after another look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
What did they get called for? Because there are two black guys sitting here meeting me? Yes. Well, what did they do? What did they do? Someone told me what they did.
They didn't do anything. I saw the entire thing.
They didn't. What did they do?
Nothing. And the woman said it's for paying customers and after they didn't do anything.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Now! Starbucks, you can have! We can see your dirty side!
We want to see an actual plan to make sure that those individuals that come to and from Starbucks, not only here on 18th and Spruce Street, but all
Welcome back. The British Home Office reportedly destroyed thousands of landing card slips in 2010, which recorded Windrush immigrants' arrival dates in the United Kingdom during the 50s and 60s. A former Home Office employee who spoke anonymously to the UK's Guardian newspaper said the records stored in the basement of a government tower block had been, quote, a vital resource for caseworkers when they were asked to find information about someone's arrival date in the UK from the West Indies. And Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has apologized to Caribbean leaders. She said she was genuinely sorry about the anxiety caused by the Home Office threatening the children of Commonwealth citizens with deportation.
And I want to dispel any impression that my government is in some sense clamping down on Commonwealth citizens, particularly those in the Caribbean who built a life here. I take this issue very seriously. The Home Secretary apologised to the House of Commons yesterday for any anxiety caused, and I want to apologise to you today.
Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he accepted the apology.
We had a very good meeting, straightforward, candid discussion. I sense that there is a genuine recognition that a wrong happened, unintentional. We formed the view. We accept the Prime Minister's apology, and I believe that the right thing is being done at this time.
Hundreds of people in Malta have held a vigil to remember the anti-corruption journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia 6 months after she was killed by a car bomb. People held up photographs of the murdered journalist outside the cathedral and the main courthouse. 3 men have pleaded not guilty to using a mobile phone to detonate the bomb outside her home on October 16, 2017. Daphne Caruana Galizia was investigating corruption on the island when she was murdered. Starbucks will close its stores on May 29th to give staff racial bias training. Nearly 1,700 170,000 Starbucks employees are expected to go through the training. The city of Philadelphia has launched an investigation into a downtown Starbucks store where witnesses said 2 black men were arrested for doing nothing other than sitting at a table. Starbucks has said the manager who made the call to the police has been let go.
They didn't do anything. I saw the entire thing.
And now let's have a look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
Police blocked central Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, as thousands of people took to the streets to protest former President Shez Sarkisian's appointment as the country's next prime minister. Sarkisian was elected prime minister in a move the opposition says is designed to extend his chokehold on power, despite protests around the country. Nigerian police fired tear gas at hundreds of Shiite Muslim protesters during the second day of clashes in the capital Abuja over the imprisonment of their religious leaders. Police also fired live ammunition trying to disperse the protesters. Organizers said at least one demonstrator had been killed while several others were injured.
They felt me down, they were beating me with stick, trying to arrest me, but people came up and helped me out and I left. So they beat a lot of people, including female. You can see the level of tyranny and oppression. Female and children were beaten and were taken by the police.
400 protesters have marched in Greece against poor living conditions at the Moria refugee camp. More than 5,300 refugees and migrants are currently stuck in the Moria camp in Lesbos, where overcrowding, poor living conditions and tensions with local Greek communities have prompted concern among human rights groups and aid organizations.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. But for these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesiotv.net/English. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesio English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
So yeah, national security is one of the most powerful notions in modern times. To swindle, I think, people, to do things that are not in their best interest, and to support massive military complexes that are not in